View from the Gutters, episode 144. Welcome to View from the Gutters, the comic book podcast where each episode we discuss a collected edition, trade paperback, or graphic novel, and then recommend and vote on the book for the next episode. Warning: the discussion portion of this show has massive spoilers for that book. On this episode, we discuss Catwoman by Ed Brubaker, and to skip ahead to the recommendation section, skip to 126.02. View from the Gutters, episode 144. I'm Andrew Chard.
I'm Tobiah Panshin.
I'm Kayleigh Fleeman.
I'm Kit Deforge. I'm not Joe Pretty today.
Where is Joe, though?
That's why I said I'm not Joe today. I don't have any creativity for it whatsoever. He
dead.
is on Mars farming potatoes and wanting to be brought home.
Also,
save Joe Pretty, bring him home. The
accidentally blowing
Can I use
himself
the one
up.
that I prepared originally that I never got to use?
Yeah.
Are you Joe Pretty, motherfucker?
I am not Joe Pretty because
All
Joe
right,
Pretty
then
is
go
not
for
here.
it.
Joe Pretty is high in the Peruvian Andes on a secret mission to recover Lemurian gold.
Okay, we'll go with that.
Is that the Golden Child? Is that the plot of the Golden Child?
No, that's The Mysterious Cities of Gold.
Oh,
One of the classics of 80s children's animation.
one of the classic Eddie Murphy films.
Never seen it.
The Golden Child.
Never heard of it. Eddie Murphy is
Say
a real
that
person.
to my face, you noodle.
We have officially done a gross of episodes.
Gross.
How many is that?
That is 1212s, or 144.
Wow. We've done more than that.
Yeah, we've
but
done way more than that, but
officially,
numerically,
yeah.
He's
this
from
is
the
the
gutters,
grossest
keeping
episode
it
we've
gross.
ever done.
Yeah.
That remains to be
This is-
seen. We've got a brilliant future of failure
we set
ahead of
a
us.
very high mark with episode 20, whatever, Puppet Sodomy.
That was episode 12.
Whatever.
Ooh, puppet sodomy.
The episode that we don't speak
early
of,
on.
That's a great episode.
which doesn't exist
Real
anymore.
early.
Fantastic.
Been
Go
deleted.
listen to it. Nope.
It doesn't exist.
Everyone
Don't go looking for it because
go
it's
find
not
it.
there.
It's so good.
Everybody listen to it.
I want that to
please.
be our highest listened to episode.
Please.
That is not going to
I
happen.
just want that.
Although,
So everyone at
episode
home
100 is
listen to it a
actually
bunch more.
pretty close to 1,000 unique listens.
What?
Which is pretty cool. It's
That
in
is
the
cool.
high 900s.
Cool.
So if you've never listened to that, go listen to it so we can announce.
So we
You don't
can
even have to listen to the
No,
whole
it's-
thing. Just click on it.
Just ignore
Yeah.
Toby and instead episode 12.
Yes.
That's the one you want.
Please make that one hit 1,000.
Yeah.
And then
I want that
Then
one
we'll talk.
to be the link. But yeah, this week we are discussing... Oh, we have episode sponsors. We should do that first.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Thank you to all of our Patreon sponsors, but in particular, thank you to our episode sponsors, Becca Lewandowski, Addison Appleby, and Brandon Hill.
Yay! So, thank you,
You
everybody.
guys are the ones that we name.
Yeah, and thank you to everybody who supports us and everyone who listens.
Yeah, you are all great. Thank
yes.
you so much.
And for
You're
those of
all
you who don't
special.
listen,
Yeah, go fuck yourself. You can't hear
Yeah.
this anyway.
yeah, take that, stick that in your bass pipe and smoke it.
But this week we're talking about some Catwoman.
Yeah.
Some
2003 to 2006 Catwoman series by Ed Brubaker.
ish reboot.
Relaunching.
Yeah, well, it was her series had been canceled for a few years. There was no Catwoman ongoing, and they did like a mini series, and that was Selina's big score, which did really well. And then they were like, "Oh, well, let's put these guys on an ongoing." So they did.
Yeah.
End of story. I
Who
guess.
would have thought that a badass, sexy woman in leather could get attention
Yeah.
from people?
Well, the leather's a change from her spandex purple cat suit.
The furry cat suit.
You don't
with
have
the
to tell
tail
me.
balance.
Don't even start that shit with me. I've fucking made that purple dress. Thank you very much.
Jim Ballant.
I know Catwoman outfits. Hell.
I
The
miss
purple
her.
one, that's the Frank Miller one, right? From Batman Year One.
Well, the one with the like really high boots,
Yeah.
the black boots,
With
and
the
then
green cape is the one that I did.
Oh, that one.
Yeah.
That's way old.
Yeah, that's the
Silver
50s
Age.
one.
Yeah, I'm talking about her
Yeah.
like 80s costume,
Yeah.
early 90s costume.
Where it actually had like the big cat
Yeah.
ears,
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
tail, and the high boots.
she had whiskers.
Yeah,
It was weird. It was a weird costume.
it was very Frank Miller.
So, however, they did do like like a sleeked down version of that, I feel like.
They did.
And then in Batman the Animated Series, she had a gray costume, and this is a bit more reminiscent of that.
Yeah, although the goggles are different.
Right, yeah.
Well, yeah. But
Yeah, it's a different setup, but they lost the tail and made it more like a cat suit and less like dressing up like a cat.
Less of a fursuit.
But in Selina's big score, she doesn't wear the suit at all. That's not a Catwoman story. That's just a Selina Kyle story. And so that is in volume 1 of the new collections of the trade. So
Yes.
we also read that. I read that. Did you guys read that?
I actually skipped that, and I just
Okay.
read the first 24 issues of the series because I was kind of on short time, and I felt like that was kind of the most important thing to read.
Oh, I think Selina's Big Score is an awesome book, so I highly recommend everybody check it out. It is a cool, just like straight up crime story, in the style of like Parker the Hunter, and stuff that Darwyn Cooke would go on to work on. And it is written. Parker the Hunter was originally written by a guy named Richard Starking.
Yes.
You mean my cinnamon roll? Richard Starking?
No.
Damn.
Not Richard Starking. Oh, who wrote? Oh, it's something Stark or Starking. Because there's a character in Selina's Big Score named Stark. As a reference to the author.
Oh.
I think it's just Richard Stark
yeah.
wrote.
Yeah,
Parker
that
the
sounds
Hunter.
correct.
The Stark. Oh God, what novels were those?
They're
Greg's gonna murder me. That's
they're
not my
Parker. They're the Parker novels.
phone. They are.
There's the Hunter.
Robert Parker.
No, not Robert B.
No?
Parker.
Anyway,
Robert B. Parker wrote the Spencer detective series.
That's right. Okay.
So I always get that confused too. But Parker is he's like a bank robber. It's like a heist.
Yeah.
And it's a revenge story about his team like ripped him off, and so he comes back and like double cross. He gets double crossed in the first one, and then
there
the
was
rest
the
of them.
and now I'm
The
completely
Mel
blanking on his
Gibson
name.
movie?
Yeah, the Mel Gibson
Payback.
movie. Payback. Thank you.
That's based on that character.
Right, and there's actually, I think that's the third movie that's based on that character, because there was one from the
Yeah.
60s, and then there was another one, and like in one he's called Parker, and in another he's called Porter.
And then there's a Jason Statham one too.
Yeah, that they just did pretty recently.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so Darwyn Cooke was really heavily influenced by that obviously when he worked on Parker the Hunter, but I think you can even see the influence on Ed Brubaker in that story,
Yeah,
which is a
and
cool
it's-
crime story.
It's really unfortunate that Darwyn Cooke doesn't stick around in this series, although
Yeah.
he is replaced by Cameron Stewart,
Which-
which I feel is not a loss in any
Right.
way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I really like his stuff. It's a little bit more like Venture Brothers looking,
Yeah.
you know? Like I
Yeah.
looked at it this time, I was like, wow, that's like very like animatorly.
Well, you can tell in the early issues when Darwyn Cooke is drawing it, there's a much heavier like Atomic Age influence on
Yeah.
the series. It looks like DC The New Frontier in the way
Yeah.
that like Selina dresses in her like normal everyday outfit.
Yeah.
It looks very 50s.
Yeah,
Yeah.
50s, 60s even,
Right.
which is the setting for the Parker books, I think.
Right.
So,
And
Yeah.
then when Stewart comes in and takes over, the character designs, they still kind of have a little bit of that quality,
Mm-hmm.
but it's much more modern.
yeah. Yeah, for sure. The Selina's Big Score feels like it could fit into kind of any era DC, kind of like Batman the Animated Series was, where it's like
Yeah.
it happens sometime. Like there's not a
Yeah.
definitive date on when it is
And
happening.
I love that kind of like timeless mid-century, like
Yeah.
it's sort of the past, but also the present day.
You can see the Atomic Age, you can see the Art Deco influence, you can see like all these different influences that are like different eras, but it's all kind of like mashed together because there's still computers, there's still like video projectors, and there's like a weird mishmash of technology and
Yeah.
whatnot.
Although it was interesting in Batman in the Animated Series, there was only ever one screen that was in color in the entire series.
Really?
Yeah, and it's because they do the thing where it's Summer Gleason and she's reporting live, and then like the camera pulls back and you're actually looking at a TV screen, kind of like that Matrix thing where it like pulls out through
Yeah.
the screen. But in order for the bit to work, she had to be in color
Oh, weird.
because you think you're looking at her live.
Yeah.
And so that's the only time that a television screen was ever in color in that entire series.
That's interesting.
The original Batman the Animated Series, at the very
Yeah.
least. I don't know how they did it in the later ones.
Yeah, because Darwyn Cooke took over in season 4 as the lead animator.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was the Batman and Robin Adventures. Like
Yeah.
that was Darwyn Cooke working on that show instead of Bruce Timm.
Okay.
So
Wow, I never knew that.
Yeah, you can see because he then would go on to do the character designs and everything for Justice League.
Right.
So like that's where he started, was on season 4 of Batman the Animated Series.
It's
as
in
far
the
as I
mouths.
remember. Yeah.
It's totally in the mouths. Like you can tell
Yeah.
the difference in how the mouths, they're kind of, I don't know. At least
Yeah,
that's
no,
the way
I see
feel
what you
about it.
mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
No, absolutely.
he does change a bit in the legs too. Their legs are like a bit thinner.
That's true.
And I've always thought that was interesting. But the Justice League legs, like Batman's
Yeah.
legs, are like thinner than they used to be in the Batman.
Justice leg.
He's got Justice legs. Justice leg unlimited.
Just this leg.
Just
Anyway.
this leg. But I think Brubaker, who was originally a crime writer, when he started writing, besides his semi-autobiographical comic that he drew, a lot of his early comic work was, like Bendis, was crime stuff. And I think Darwyn Cooke and Brubaker bring this sort of like timeless crime aspect to
Yeah.
the early Catwoman stuff, where, you know, you've got like, there's hookers and grifters and money men and bank robbers and safe crackers and getaway drivers and all this like kind of stuff that never went away in crime. You don't see a lot of like cyber crime in
And
the
coke
Brubaker
bursting in
stuff.
bellies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and
like
colons. And
yeah. So, and that kind of stuff was, I mean, around in all of American crime. So, all of the American like detective tradition and like crime fiction writers have always kind of incorporated all those elements. So, I think you see the influence of American crime
Yeah, it's
on
got-
this series.
It's kind of weird how anachronistic the early parts of the series are. Just because, I mean, it feels like so weirdly out of all time.
Yeah. Yeah. And knowing that this was happening in 2000, so this is only like 2 or 3 years before Infinite Crisis happens.
Yeah.
Like, sets it in a very strange...
Well,
Yeah,
New Frontier is really similar with that too.
Yeah, but it
Sure.
is...
Right.
It's set in the time period that it's supposed to... Like, it's in the 60s because that's when...
The 50s and the 60s.
Yeah.
because that's when the Silver Age was. So it's
But
like
there
supposed to
is
be that time.
Some sort of weird, like bringing stuff from present time into that as like, oh, new technology, like super advanced technology
Yeah,
that we
yeah.
have,
Yeah,
and so
for
it
sure.
makes it feel timeless.
Yeah, like
versus
the-
like
Super jets and stuff, like
Yeah.
all was kind of like, oh well, this is where they would end up anyway, so they just kind of like added those into the comics.
Yeah,
it's like
instead of
retrospective
being,
looking.
like forward looking, like this is where we think technology will
Yeah,
go. It's
totally.
like this is where technology actually went.
Right.
And so we can kind of make it science fictional and retro at the same time.
Yeah, they have the benefit of being able to like.
But it was really
Retcon.
interesting for me reading this, since Black Mask comes in the later issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who is the same villain who we saw in the Stephanie Brown long run that we did.
For No Man's Land.
No, not
Or not No
Man's
Man's. Sorry.
Land. War Drums.
Thank you. War Drums, War
Games.
Crimes. Yeah.
Yeah, that whole thing. And to see this like really different visual interpretation of that
Yeah.
character, like that same character, and think like, oh wow, this is actually happening at the same time. Like they feel like they're of such different eras.
Yeah, and I think Catwoman's always kind of been cool. We talk about this with Marvel a lot, where like Daredevil and Iron Fist and Power Man kind of get this like little chunk of the world to play with while the Avengers are doing like big scale stuff. Catwoman, I think, to me works really well like a Daredevil type street level character. Mm-hmm.
It's a very like naturalistic choice, like
Yeah.
from the standpoint of the character and like the storytelling that they use for her. It just
she's a cat burglar.
yeah,
Like she's not gonna be worried about the Anti-Monitor and Superboy Prime punching through the walls of the like that doesn't bother her because it's
Yeah.
not related to her job.
Although I have to say, honestly, my favorite part of this series is the last arc that we read from like 18 through 24, where she's on the road trip
Yeah.
and she runs into like Wildcat and Captain Cold and Hawk Girl and Hawkman.
Which I think is a retcon. There's a retcon thrown in there in Selina's Big Score where she talks about, because in Selina's Big Score, Stark is talking about how he like trained her to be a burglar. She's also talking about other men who have trained her, and she mentions Wildcat,
Ted
Grant. And I don't think that ever was part of her story before that.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, so that was another cool moment because it's like the first time that becomes relevant is later on in the series with the road trip.
Yeah, and it kind of made me wonder like how that actually ended up happening. Like she's a criminal, he's a superhero.
Kind of been a shadier
superhero. I suppose that's true.
Getting involved in like underground street fighting and stuff.
But it's really interesting to see like the way that Catwoman interacts with all of these different characters. Like she runs into Captain Cold, and instead of it being like this superhero like tense, oh my god, we're gonna throw down now moment, he's like, oh hey, how's it going? Like, do you want to come up to my apartment and hang out?
Yeah.
Like, and you have that really interesting moment, and then she's hanging out with Hawkman, and like she kind of straddles so many different worlds, and she interacts with all of these people in different ways.
Yeah.
But then also kind of the same way. And you see that in like Slam Bradley's conversation with Batman and like the way that she talks to Ted Grant and he's talking with Holly about Selina. Like she has a very particular effect on people, men and women both.
It's that moment where she and Batman are standing on the rooftop and he had done something to help her. Oh, it was like right when she came back and she threw the brick at that guy.
Oh, yeah.
To save Batman. And she's like, what was I supposed to do? Just like let him shoot you or whatever. And they have that moment where you understand why Batman kind of lets her get away with what she does because he knows that she serves a certain purpose in the community. Like she's not villainous for... Like, it's not for personal gain that she does what she does.
That's true, but I think that there's also a larger point there that he is in love with her.
Yeah, I mean, that comes up later, too. I like the scenes we get with Selina and Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's a big part of this series, too.
And that's such a weird dynamic, because I don't think she knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman.
I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell if like what point in their relationship this was at because sometimes she knows and sometimes she doesn't.
Right.
And I from context I couldn't.
I
don't
know
think
either.
she's sharp enough to kind of know.
Yeah, like
because there are other indicators in the story that like you know that she's able to be like, yeah, I knew about this person's drug habit. I kind of like I like to think she's observant enough just by nature of what she does that she would kind of know.
And I think that because it's told to us earlier that Bruce knows that she is Catwoman, like I kind of feel like they both know.
I feel like I feel like there's
like
an
the joke
inference there. Like I don't know. I feel like that's kind of saying without saying what.
Yeah.
Like how he knows. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like
to put it that way,
Batman knows most of the criminals' identities who he fights because they've been arrested and they've been booked through the system and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Like Batman knows that Selina Kyle is Catwoman. That's been a long established fact. But the fact that she knows who he is. That kind of, I mean, with the various retcons and reboots, that kind of goes back and forth.
Yeah.
And I know that by like 2010, by the time he's doing the whole Batman Inc. thing, like, they become intimates. They, know all about each other.
Right.
But I don't know when that actually happened at that point in continuity.
Pre-crisis, they knew.
Well.
And then post-crisis, it was like... Sometimes they knew, and sometimes they didn't, and so.
Well, I mean, at least in one reality, they were married and had a kid,
right?
So obviously they knew.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like the point with this though is that, like, as you'd previously stated, it's not terribly necessary to nail down a timeline as far as these things go because the stories work whether or not we know that information.
Yeah, totally.
I guess like it's more about how they're able to explore the character. Like they have this rich characterization with like a lot of interesting things to play on in the background because you've got like, again, like the 13-year-old runaway thing. So she's got street connects. There's the high society angle. So she can do that too. So I don't really know that it's terribly necessary to know that for the stories to work as well as they do. All you need to know really is that she's observant, capable, and has been through a lot of different things.
Yeah, and I mentioned this on the last episode because we were talking about Bloodspell which is a great book for people who watched the animated series or Justice League Unlimited or whatever, to jump into comic books. I feel like this is a lot of the same way because of exactly what you're saying, kids. It's like
it's not crucial to nail down like a history, which is what makes it interesting and relevant. And for me, reading stories like this, my favorite Gotham stories are the ones that are these little capsules away from some ridiculous continuity that I have to follow. You just need to know the characterization to make it work. I've always felt that way about Big Two Comics, is that I couldn't give less of a fuck what's going on in the larger continuity of most of these like publishing companies. I just want a good story with characters that I like there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think that, you know, this case is a good one that, again, if you were someone like me who grew up with the animated series and had a really strong fondness for that like aesthetic, for that way that the characters, like the tone, the way the characters speak to each other in this feels a lot like, again, watching the animated series. Yeah,
it's like that, but a little bit.
Yeah, a little more adult. Yeah,
well, and I want to talk about the dialogue, actually, because that's one of the things that struck me the most about this comic. The dialogue was just great. Yeah. And I didn't really realize how bad dialogue could be in a comic until I read this and realized how good it could actually be and how well it could work.
It's so far along the spectrum, the other direction.
Yeah. And it's just, it feels like conversations, and it feels like people like messing with each other, being sly with each other.
That Slam Bradley scene where she breaks into his house and he's in bed, and she's like, nice boxes shorts, and he's like, hey, I don't make fun of what you wear. I could make fun of your outfit. I could easily make fun of your outfit.
Why aren't doing that? Because he's brushing his hair. Like, I love,
he's like, our super right.
And again, the way that's written is like this, again, really natural sort of conversation, because you have that really, really strong foundational understanding of what these characters are like. And it's a really good case of showing and not telling, because again, you could throw all the information at the beginning of the book. This is Catwoman. This is what she's done. This is this person. This is what they've done. And they include some of that stuff in the back. But again, if you're good enough at writing the dialogue between the characters, it's not necessary. You know what nature of like friendship or relationship the characters have just from the high quality of the dialogue.
I think issue 1 of the series, after the interview with Leslie Tompkins, like, you have like a really strong understanding of where Selina is in her life. Without a huge exposition dump or like a last time on Catwoman, like that simple conversation that they have about where she is in her life, and she's in a dark place and she's been avoiding the costume. She doesn't feel like she fits in. Like, that kind of stuff just like sets you up for what her mindset is, and then you can launch into the series so easily after that.
Yeah, I actually wanted to tangent off that a little bit, and in reference to what we were just talking about, the scene in issue 10 where she's talking to Bruce Wayne, and Bruce is like, oh, like, I didn't know you were dead. And she was like, sometimes life just makes you want to vanish. You know what I mean, I'm sure. Like, there's a very subtle indication there that she's like telling him that she knows his secret. But then also kind of deflecting it. And it's like, it's really great throughout this series how much they say with so little dialogue. Like, somebody says something that's kind of a deflecting answer that also sort of indicates to you what they're not talking about.
Do you think that comes from like the pulp, like Brubaker pulling on the pulp tradition of writing, where like the quippy less is more type PI dialogue?
Well, if it does, he can pull like crazy. I'd be very happy with that. Like, you know, and that's what makes, I think that's what makes those stories so fun and interesting for people to read, because they don't treat you like you're an idiot. It's really nice to feel like an author trusts you enough to understand what's going on. And that's something for me, especially in comics, that is a big fucking deal.
Well, for me, a lot of what separated pulp storytelling from like Big L literature is there's not a lot of like flowery language. Like, everything is very, I don't want to call it mundane, but you know what I mean? Like, everything is very realistic, and words are words. Like, he says exactly, like, a lot of pulp authors will just say exactly what's happening. Like, he holstered his gun, did this, opened the door, picked this, and it's like very much like trying to put you in that place by being like slightly pedantic, and then their dialogue is not, no one's overly clever. It just like everything feels realistic.
Yeah, well, and I wanted like with that sort of like straightforward action descriptions, a lot of that comes through in the art. Like when they're doing the heist in Selina's Big Score, and it's like super straightforward action, like oh, we're gonna jump on this train, and then we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, and the
Parachute the money off.
Parachute the money off into the river onto rafts that they are attached to.
That was pretty
we're swinging people underneath the bridge.
They would they would the way that all the action was drawn, it was like a clip of it, like you were watching a montage,
like efficiency of
and so it felt really fast. A lot of comics do kind of the opposite thing, where they want to slow everything down so that they can highlight the action and like the ability of their characters. Is kind of like a whole competency porn sort of a thing, where it's like, look how good Batman is at doing his job. He's so good. He's so cool. But this doesn't feel like that. It feels like this heist happened so quickly. And because everybody knows what they're doing, because
there's not a lot of wasted panel space.
Yeah, exactly.
It's economy. It's a graphic economy, just like economy of language.
Well, I think that really is the heart of why the pulps were the way that they were, was because the authors were not artists. They were guys who were working for a paycheck, and they were paid by the word. And so they didn't have time for flowery language and making this like really artistic and, oh, this sentence is going to flow so well. It's like, no, I'm going to tell this story and I'm going to do it in as many words as possible, but as quickly as possible. So it's just like boom, 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 things happening.
Like
and you get that very purple prose, but it's very to the point.
Like I got 4 pages in this issue of Black Mask magazine. Like I got to tell you an efficient story.
And I think that is the efficiency that they're mirroring in the artwork, in terms of, we're just going to belt this story out to you, and we're not going to fucking dress it up and like throw in all the superfluous action. Like it's just going to happen, and it's going to happen quick.
It's interesting too, because Selina's Big Score is a 4-issue mini, but at the same time that Selina's Big Score was running, in Detective Comics there was the Slam Bradley side of that story. So you could read each month, you could read Selina's side, Slam Bradley's side. Then the next month you'd read those again. And that's all collected in the first volume now. But so they leave stuff out of Selina's Big Score, which
Kayleigh,
is kind of weird.
Could you actually hand me your copy of that volume? Or if that's Kit's volume?
It's the library's volume.
There is also, in fact, a very loose page.
Thank
somehow made its way to me, and my heart hurts knowing that.
So the Slam Bradley stuff like fills in a lot of the gaps in Selina's Big Score. So I guess I want to say that it is 4 issues that is very efficient, and they've like packed a lot of information in it. And a lot of authors would have told this in like a 6, 8, or 10 issue arc. But I will also say that some of the legwork is picked up by the fact that they knew there was this other series like going on at the same time.
But like as I was reading it, I didn't know that there was a Slam Bradley thing to go alongside it, and I felt like I got the whole story, and I felt like I got a really good look into Slam Bradley's story. And then I was just excited to see that he had his own 4-issue miniseries, because it was like, oh cool, now I can see it from his side. And I feel like if I had just read his, I would still get enough of the flavor of Catwoman's story that, or I guess Selina Kyle's, because she's not really, whatever. But I would get enough of a taste of her story. Which is really cool. And you see that a lot in a lot of pulp fiction, where it's like, you're not going to tell the story of the villain or the person that they're looking for or whatever, but you'll get enough of it that you can kind of figure out where they've been and what they're doing and what they're working towards.
I like the stories where it's like it just basically follows a point of view character the whole time. And I think that this is kind of like in that tradition of the detective, like, or of the heist man in the case of like Parker the Hunter, where like the story is all basically told from his point of view. So you only see like his side of the planning meetings and his side of all this. And so when the double cross comes, it's like a much bigger deal. But I really like the fact that you get the story from both sides, because it is fun to watch like the mayor hire Slam Bradley and why he goes to Shifty. What's his name?
Swifty.
Get Swifty.
Get Swifty. Yeah.
And he like beats up that guy and breaks the whole shop. Like, when you see it in Selina's story, it's like, yeah, he just came in here and out of nowhere started breaking stuff.
Yeah.
Slam Bradley's story, you see this like a little bit more complicated than that. So I think that's
love
fun too.
Slam Bradley in this so much.
Yeah,
I was kind of mad how like at first he's like this very minor character, and I was like waiting for the action to break out because that's what Slam Bradley is known for, and it wasn't until like issue 8 or something like that he actually hits anybody.
Yeah.
And I was honestly starting to get mad, but then once he actually did start doing stuff, it was so much fun.
But he shoots a lot of people in Selina's big score, so you kind of like have that expectation going into the ongoing where you're like, oh, Slam Bradley's here, he's gonna fuck shit up, and then he doesn't really for a while.
But I just love that he's kind of this like big lug that just hits people and breaks stuff and doesn't fall down. I mean, he beats Batman by just continuing to get up.
Yeah.
But he's also like, he's very crafty. Like, he's a skilled detective. He has those detective skills of like, I'm going to pull on a string and then I'm going to follow somebody and I'm going to shake down this informant. And like, he is actually incredibly critical to Selina's operation. Like, he really does help her out by supplementing the skills that she doesn't have. And I think it's a really interesting character dynamic that they have.
Yeah. I think this series proves another really interesting point about Catwoman, where I think she is a very interesting character, but I think she is even more interesting when she has other characters to reflect off of. Like, I really like the introduction of Holly into the story and Dr. Tompkins and Slam Bradley and like all this cast of characters that are around here. Are you guys reading the current Catwoman stuff?
No.
So I've been told to read it because it's basically like Selina Kyle as a mob boss. And so she has like a mob organization built up around her, and I guess it's sort of like similar to like some of the crime stuff from before. So I've been meaning to check that out because I think these kind of elements are where Catwoman or Selina Kyle like really shines, is when she is part of a larger tapestry that is Gotham.
Wasn't that called Daredevil Shadowland?
I think you're thinking of the one where he's a devil. He's an actual devil.
Literal devil.
The literal daredevil, where he turns into a devil and then has an
Is that
army.
Guardian Devil?
I just mean like...
I don't fucking know either.
Are you saying about the one where he's leading the hand?
No, that's what I mean. It's like I'm like, man, that sounds familiar.
Well,
it's like street
it's
level
funny,
hero, you know.
Over in Marvel, the Black Cat is now a mob boss.
Yeah, right?
Say what?
In this case, it is like a familial connection to the mafia. Yeah, and the Black Cat's more of like what the Red Hood was not long ago, right? Where she's just like kind of gathering up a lot of B and C list criminals, right?
Oh, okay.
Like the Shocker
sort of,
around.
yeah. Well, like she took over a mob family. Because like the Kingpin got kicked out by Dr. Octopus and he like fled the country.
Yep.
And in the power vacuum, the Black Cat, who had been arrested by Spider-Man and was like super pissed at him, like took over a mafia family.
Yeah, I remember that.
And started running it. And she's been like slowly recruiting different people. Like when Spider-Man broke up Norman Osborn's Goblin Nation, she grabbed some of those people.
Yeah, she has like some supervillains stuff too, right?
Yeah.
I think I'm not reading the modern Catwoman stuff, but I think it's more of like just straight up crime family stuff.
Yeah.
And I really like Selina as a part of Gotham, and I think the series does a really good job to like solidify her as an important part of Gotham City.
Well, I think that partially because of Batman, DC has had a lot more of an expansive street level pantheon of characters.
Oh yeah,
I mean, even going back to the Golden Age characters of the 40s and their descendants. Whereas, I mean, Marvel has a few. I mean, they've got Daredevil and the Heroes for Hire and... I mean, sort of Spider-Man at different times and like a few other people, but like literally it's just like it's a handful.
Right.
Whereas in DC, like you have so many street level characters and their villains in different cities, like all across the country. You feel like there's kind of a network of these people.
Yeah.
And so there's I think there's a lot more depth to those stories on the DC side.
Yeah, and I think DC has always kind of had like more distinct tiers of like classes of superhero, where it's like, well, these guys are Justice League level superheroes, like they're out dealing with all of the crazy shit that's going on out in the universe, and then there's like, you've got teams that are really good at dealing with stuff, but they are nowhere near the level of the Justice League. But you've got stuff like Teen Titans and the Outsiders, who are like, they're not necessarily street level guys.
The Freedom Fighters.
Yeah, but they're superheroes, but they're just like not huge. And there's the JSA, which is like these old guys, and now a bunch of young new guys getting trained by old guys. But then you have like straight up small time superheroes that don't really have powers. They're just like street level heroes. And because I always felt like DC was a universe that had more heroes than Marvel. Just as like it feels like it does.
DC has always had more heroes, and I think that Marvel has had more villains.
Yeah.
Relative to the number of heroes out there. Because if you think about how many Marvel heroes there are, like there's the Avengers and the X-Men and the Fantastic Four and West Coast Avengers, like there really aren't that many different groups out there,
right? And they don't each have their own city. You know, like something that DC was doing for a long time is you have like Star City and Coast City and Opal City, and like, they each have their own champions, their own rogues galleries, their own. Like,
part of that is that DC is older; it goes back to the Golden Age, and they absorbed a lot of defunct companies as well, and so
that's why they have Fawcett City.
Fawcett City and Opal City and Coast, and just all of the different cities.
Yeah,
and so they had a bunch of different characters that all kind of fit the same narrative niche.
Yeah, the superhero archetype champion of City X.
Yeah, and so like you've got Batman, but then you've also got Blue Beetle, who's kind of a similar character, and like Green Arrow is kind of a similar character. And
he's the same. He is he was literally made because too many people wanted to write Batman, so they made a Batman analogy character.
Right. And so like you had all of these street level characters from all of these different companies that kind of all coexisted.
Yeah. And they kind of each carved out their own little niche too. Like they all became different enough. Where I feel like sometimes Marvel has the problem of they have heroes that are too similar and they don't know what to do with them. Sometimes they are like literal clones of other characters, and they're like, well, I guess we have to kill one of these two off because we couldn't develop a new interesting personality or storyline.
Yeah. Or they just
that'd be too hard.
Disappear forever.
Yeah.
Like I mean, I don't even know the last time the US Agent was a starring character in anything.
Yeah. I don't.
Because I mean, why would you use him?
Right. But yeah, there's like Peter Parker has clones out there running around, and they totally could have done other stuff with them. They just chose not to. Like no one ever.
I mean, I guess that's kind of changing now that they have like 6 Spider-Men and 3 Spider-Women, and then all the alternate dimension versions of those.
It's been a fantastic time for everyone involved.
Yeah,
having such a great time. Everyone.
Well, they have a new book. I think it's called Web Warriors.
Yes.
That is literally just like, here's a bunch of Spider-Men.
It's perfect. It's so good.
Yep.
So, not enough Spider-Man.
Oh my God. So
too many Spider-Man.
God.
That's the next event at Marvel.
We'll
One can only
all
hope.
the Spider-Man. And I will be the Spider-Man.
The Spider-Man.
No, last night at work I had to sort Spider-Man back issues. And it was hell.
Yeah.
There's so many.
Yeah.
So many.
Yeah.
Like, I think we have 6 long boxes dedicated to just Spider-Man, and that's not including things that haven't been folded in yet, which it's like an additional like 3 or 4 long boxes.
Yeah, and a lot of that was like Batman, where it was like Shadow of the Bat and Gotham Knights.
Yeah, there was Spider-Man,
the
Web of Spider-Man, Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man,
Amazing Spider-Man,
and Amazing Spider-Man,
and
then
Spider-Man, Son of Spider-Man,
all
Spider-Man 2099,
Spider-Man Loves Mary Jane, Superior Foes of Spider-Man.
Yeah, for like a long time they were doing 4 Spider-Man comics a month.
Yeah,
and then at one point they were just like, it's all Amazing Spider-Man, and it comes out every week.
Yeah.
And then I think they cut it down to like 3 times a month.
Yeah.
And I think it was at 2 times a month for a while there. And now it's once a month, and they've got all these other fucking titles.
Right, yeah.
Silk and Spider-Woman and Spider-Gwen and Miles, the Ultimate Spider-Man, and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah. But I think that, Batman's been a lot of the same thing, and he's always had, like, each of his Bat family and Bat crew kind of have their own book, and I think that that's a little bit deeper than just having 5 books about the same character, is when you're like, well, here's Robin's book, and he sees this a little bit differently, and there's Nightwing over there, and he's kind of doing his own thing. You got Barbara with the Birds of Prey, they're doing their own thing. Over there's Selina, and we can kind of like tap into a little bit more of the criminal element, and there's Gotham Central over there, and that's what the cops are doing. And I think DC, for a while with the Bat family, was doing some really cool stuff.
Yeah, it was kind of cool when it was like, this is Gotham City. Yeah. And these books all take place in Gotham City. Yeah. And these characters know each other and kind of bounce off one another.
Mm-hmm. Some of them take place at the same time. Some of them are out of continuity. Yeah. Like, we just have we're laying down a lot of groundwork in Gotham. And I think Catwoman's always been such a cool part of that.
Yeah, I would also like to talk about the Catwoman. Mm-hmm. So... Talking about characterization a little earlier, though, I was just thinking about how much I liked Joyride in this, in particular, when you're talking about like how her relationships with other characters are like really informative as to who she is and stuff. I really, really liked that Joyride story. Like that one, for some reason, just stuck out, I guess, more than everything else. Yeah. Because I like, the story itself is like fairly unremarkable, I think, as far as what happens, like plot-wise. But I think that it really stood out as an example of what kind of person she is and what she values, more than I think a lot of the other things that I saw while reading this. That was the one that I really liked about her going back and helping rescue this schoolmate of hers who was basically going to be sent to death row. I don't know. I just wanted to comment on that particular story because it's very her, because I think it would be easy for a lot of people to be like, oh, well, Batman's this vigilante who does these things based on his, background and his experience, and he's just, he does them because he's Batman. And I think a lot of the time, especially like even in the book, one of the descriptions of Catwoman was saying, oh, she started into this thing when she saw like a young Batman doing the stuff and was inspired. And I kind of cringed, I guess, at that description, even if it's partially true. Yeah. And I kind of was like, I don't really like that description. But then there were also some parallels, I think, that were kind of okay to draw with that. Yeah. And that's, I think, where Joyride comes in for me, as far as like, what she values is she values reciprocity. Yeah. In a lot of senses, like this friend of hers, helped her when those guys were, running on her in the bathroom or whatever when she was in school, and that she pays back her debts. Yeah. And I think that's a fun thing in a thief story too, because so commonly people only tell this thief story as either a Robin Hood situation or like, I'm just immoral, I'll take from anybody. I don't have any concept of what's mine and what's not, or like paying and repaying. But I think that what makes her stand out and what makes these stories more interesting and more compelling is knowing that even though her actions may not be legal, her own sense of ethics shines in its own way.
Mm-hmm. That's something that I think is really reminiscent of pulp storytelling and stuff. Is like they may be criminals, but they have a code. Like she lives by her code. And I think that Selina is often painted as a Robin Hood figure, as like she takes from these like corrupt bureaucrats, politicians, and whatnot, and gives it back.
Going to give back to the people the monies that the mafia took from them.
And I think that the Joyride story is when Selina really shines as far as the payback to the people, is like she's there for the people that she knows, the people on her block. She's there for the community that she lives in. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a really interesting parallel to be made, like you said, with Batman, is who does more good? Because Batman's running around like stopping small time crime and punching people in the face and stuff, but like where does the Wayne Foundation, where is it picking up the slack? Because there's obviously still a lot of poverty in Gotham City. There's obviously still a lot of prostitution, drug abuse, like all this fringe criminal activity. like neither of them are winning the war on crime. They're fighting it in a different way.
Well, Batman's the Band-Aid on the shotgun wound.
Right.
Like, he's always kind of been done in this sort of way. And I feel like in the case of Selina and Catwoman and stuff, it's when you're on the level of the people who are having these problems, when you live among that,
right.
Even when she has considerable wealth at times, in different parts of her history where she gets that sort of money, it seems like she still chooses to spend time around situations that are familiar to her or people like herself in some cases. They talk at one point in her getting into high society kind of as to show that she can.
Right.
Less so than it being the end goal of like, well, I've got to stop being poor, so I'm going to steal so that I'll be rich. Right. And that's not really her motivator, is that when they tell this kind of story of her, like, mother having committed suicide or, separation from her sister and all that, and, being thrown into school kind of on her own. For her, it's about finding a place and finding a community.
Yeah.
And less so Batman's story of kind of being, I'm alone, these things were taken from me, so I'm alone.
Yeah. And
he still builds a family, but she's more invested in this idea of maintaining that.
It's different too, because Batman is all about like, I'm not going to let what happened to my family happen to anyone else. And Selina's more about like, I'm not going to end crime, period, but I am going to help that person, and then I'm going to help that person, and I'm going to help that person, and then at least I know I've helped those people. Like, it's much more personal for Selina.
But she's like, you ever hear that thing about like shore is full of starfish, where you're throwing back starfish into the ocean? I feel like that's kind of a Selina Kyle mentality.
Yeah, Ted Grant makes that exact point at one point in the book. And I think another example of her ethics is when she's fighting the corrupt cops and she gives the ledger to the fence,
Yes.
the list of all the cops, because that's what she said that she was going to do.
Right.
And she keeps her word.
Yeah.
But I always think it's really interesting to see Batman not from his own perspective, which you see in his own books, but from an outside perspective, to see the way that other people perceive him. And I think that this book does a good job of showing how Batman is fighting crime from this privileged white rich male perspective, as much as I may not like to put it in exactly those terms. But Catwoman is going, he has his priorities.
Yeah.
These are the things that he's interested in. He doesn't come to the East End all the time. He doesn't see the things that I see.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily see everything, so I have somebody to show me the things that I can't find.
Yeah, there's those neighborhoods that cops don't drive through. There's the neighborhoods that Batman doesn't go to.
Yeah.
Because he's not interested in that.
Like, it's interesting to see the way that other people perceive Batman and see the way that he acts and the things that he does and react to him from the outside. And I think one of my actual favorite scenes in this book is when Batman and Simon Bradley are on the roof together having a conversation, because you're seeing a very different perspective of Batman than you normally see. And I think that this book is a really good example of taking the concept of Batman and twisting it and turning it on its head and saying, well, what if this completely different character were something like Batman? Was, because I mean, she's got her family, she's got her own battle, but she pursues it in her own way. She has her own strengths and weaknesses. She's taking the same concept and putting a different spin on it.
Yeah,
and I think that is really interesting.
Well, that's, again, like a lot of my favorite like Bat books acknowledge Gotham not just as a setting, but as a character. And I think, again, that's what makes this book work for me, is that it's about not just seeing a different side of like what Selina sees or Batman sees. It's you're also seeing like different aspects of Gotham and who's affected by the way things are here.
Like Chantel in Selina's Big Score, like her version of Gotham.
Yes.
Where she's a girlfriend of the Falcone, but she has a daughter and a mom she wants to take care of, so she's trying to get out of the bad situation that she's in, so she gives Selina the information on the score. You have Holly, who has like drug dealer vision, where it's like junkie, dealer, holding, like she sees the city in a way that other people don't see. And I think that the book does a really good job of showing you kind of the man on the street, really the woman on the street in Gotham, like what that's like to be a woman in Gotham City.
Yeah.
Through several different side female characters in the book.
And it's always been the case with Gotham that being a woman in Gotham City was not good.
Yeah.
Like, it's never been easy or even slightly pleasant, honestly. Even those who are...
Regardless of wealth or class.
Yeah, exactly. Regardless of privilege and their standing in society, usually bad things happen to them because of the nature of the city, and also because of the nature of writers who traditionally write Bat family stories. But I really like this book because of the way it handles that. As yes, bad things like it can happen in a city that has this much wealth and privilege and also this much poverty. Like, it still happens to all these women.
Yeah.
And that's something that you see in real life. Like, if you look at different county analysis and stuff, certain counties and certain cities have way higher rates of abuse and death of women, just because of the way that they're treated in that city. And it changes across city lines, like, drastically. The difference between how women are treated in, say,
Metropolis.
Metropolis. Well, I was going to actually go with a real world example. Tacoma versus Seattle. It's astronomical. The rates are insane.
Another example, Trenton and Philadelphia, literally across the river from one another. Like, you cross one bridge, but you have crossed county jurisdictions, you've crossed municipal jurisdictions, and you've crossed state lines. And the difference between those two cities is, I mean, I'm not going to say night and day, but drastic.
Yeah. And so it's cool to show this as Gotham is not a good city.
No.
Like, it's a character, and it has good people within it, but it is not a good place to be.
It is corruption at every level. You've got crime at every level. You have street level crime all the way up to corporate crime. You have the abuse of women at every level, and you have Selina, who is a woman who has the ability kind of to sidestep a lot of that because of her backstory, because of her training, because of her ability to just kind of go like, yeah, I need that thing, so I'm just going to take it. In which other people may not have that opportunity. And so I like her as kind of a beacon within the city that other people know they can come to her.
Right. Yeah. Well, and she is a character who, unlike Batman or Bruce Wayne, goes across all classes.
She is
actively a part of every single class
and
in Gotham.
It's not putting on a mask like when Bruce does it. Like, she doesn't dress up as Matches Malone. Like, she is Selina Kyle.
They make that point in the
right?
book. I don't remember which character says it, but I remember that name from the society pages.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
Like, wait, Selina Kyle? I thought I saw that name somewhere. It's
right.
like, well, you have, you know.
Yeah. And I like that people know who she is. Like, she's kind of that, like, oh, you know, if you need help, you can go to Selina Kyle. She's like got that A-team kind of thing. But also, she has all the high society connections. She has connections to people like Dr. Tompkins, right?
Yeah.
Is that who it is?
Yeah, Leslie Tompkins.
Yeah. Which also, that, like, nightmare that Leslie has at the beginning of one issue before, like, Selina wakes her up.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh, it's dark. But
there's some serious darkness. I mean, the whole bit with Black Mask and Maggie Kyle.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. That was just, ugh.
Gotham's it's not a fun city to live in.
It's really not.
Yeah.
Well, again, you know, back to the whole thing of, you know, the children being used as mules and stuff that. And the statement before that good crime stories or good Gotham stories don't shy away from the reality of, like, a lot of urban life.
When Holly gets shot,
yeah,
and Dr. Tompkins is operating on her, and she's going to shoot her with morphine.
Yeah, it's like she's a
Selina's
recovering
like,
addict.
You can't give her any pain medication because she's a recovering addict. Like, you can't give that to her, which is a touching moment too, because that's when Holly finds out that, like, Selina knew, and and Selina's like, I don't care. That's not a part of your life anymore. But then you realize that Dr. Tompkins is going to have to operate on her without any anesthetic. You're like, oh, this is going to suck.
Yeah.
Like, you can see it.
this does actually remind me of one thing that I did want to talk about that I felt was a detraction from the book. Going back to our conversation last week about the difference between sexual and sexualizing.
Yeah.
How sexualized the male gaze of the comic is looking at Selina. How frequently there's an ass shot or she's just naked for whatever reason.
Kelly from Out of the Fridge was sitting next to me while I was reading this today, and I was just like, why is she doing this? And opened to a page where it's Selina Kyle in a bathrobe talking to Holly in her kitchen, and the bathrobe is slung down over her shoulders, half a boob is out, and no pants. She's got her legs up on the counter. I'm like, why is she doing that? What is the point of this? Where are her comfy sweatpants? Where's her around the house attire?
There's one point where she's standing in front of Holly, completely naked, pulling on her cat suit.
Yeah.
It's why is this scene framed in this way?
Well, you can't wear underpants under the cat suit, but do we need to really see her boobs?
Right,
she also
exactly.
doesn't strike me as a character who would give a fuck about any of those
right,
things.
And that's the thing, is that Selina Kyle is a sexual character, but there are many times when the way that the panel is drawn is sexualizing her in a way that isn't necessary or apparent from what's actually going on.
Yeah, sometimes she is a little bent over in front of the panel.
Yeah.
And you're like, what's happening? Oh, I see. In the next panel I get a little bit more context.
And
there's just a lot of random
story
TNA.
Too.
Yeah.
Is a lot of it is that there are some action shots where there's plenty of opportunity for that, but I looked at a few where I saw that could have been the case, but the way a shadow was done obscured, a complete form.
Right.
As far as the human body goes. There was one point, I think she's leaping over a roof, and it's definitely what would easily be an ass shot, in any other artist, but the heavy black shadowing takes away from that.
And it
really depends on which panel,
And it could have been a lot worse. Because
Absolutely.
we saw the New 52 Catwoman #1 where you're not even introduced to her face until halfway through the story.
Yeah.
Because all they want to do is show you her tits and her ass.
And that's the one where the final page is a giant splash page of Batman balls deep in Catwoman.
I think so,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
No,
It's
I'm saying it is.
Yeah, it was the first opening shots are her zipping up her cat suit, and it's just the whole first panel is just her boobs. And you're like, why is her face?
It feels good.
Where's the face part? Where's the character that I'm supposed to be interested in? Where is she? Are those her? What's happening? So it
Which
could
one's
be
Catwoman?
the Catwoman and that one's Larry. What's going on here? I found that too. It was distracting. There are definitely Catwoman stories that are worse. I point to any Jim Ballant drawing of Catwoman ever. I point to the New 52 Catwoman. So, yeah, Kit's right. This could be a lot worse.
Well, it super depends on what's happening, what the tone of the scene and stuff is too. Because I found that when I was looking at action scenes, I did not see what I expected to see as far as that department goes. And I do, in fact, look for it because it's fucking Catwoman, and that's usually what happens.
Absolutely.
But, there were quite a few that I was looking at and kind of going, well, this is what I would call a missed opportunity for some artists. I don't know. There are quite a few of these where she's leaping from a roof or things like that, or these silhouette shots that you could definitely make into money shots, but they don't.
And I think that Catwoman is a sexy character, and they like to have us remember that she is a sexy lady. She's a good-looking lady, and I don't necessarily have a problem with that. But my problem is when it's stuff like her lounging around in the robe in the house with one shoulder off. I'm like, who does that? It just feels unrealistic, and it takes me out of the story.
And there are so many times where she's specifically being sexy. She's all dolled up. She's trying to seduce somebody. She's trying to get information. And those are the times that you would expect, oh, here's a sexy Catwoman shot. Right. She's being sexy on purpose in the story.
Got dressed up for this, right? And it's more of the taking you out of the reality of the situation when it's why is she standing like that, or who does that?
Yeah.
And that it's not necessarily that it is, oh, you can't show a butt in a comic.
Yeah, no, absolutely not.
It's more of and now I'm completely distracted from the story I was reading. It's completely, it loses you.
Yeah.
It kicks you out of the story.
Especially because the rest of the story just isn't that.
Exactly.
Like Kit was saying.
Yeah.
It's just so off tone.
Yeah.
And again, tone is important in that, though. So I guess I'd better change my pajamas around home because typically I wear things that I'm comfortable in and I don't really care what people see or think. That's something I kind of think about, where it's like, again, if this character is known for liking luxurious things and being indulgent, is she going to own a pair of sweatpants? I don't fucking think so.
She might own like a nice robe, but why is like one shoulder? I mean, and Kelly was like, I almost could get it if it was off in one panel, and then in the next panel she like moved it back up as if it was just like here's a little shoulder in one shot, and then she's like, I'm going to cover up because I have guests in the house or whatever. But she never does that. It's like 4 panels of her continuously with that shoulder down and like almost half a boob out.
Yeah, well, and she's like leaning over the counter.
And it was like the first shot I wasn't annoyed, but by panel 4 or 5, I was like, all right, enough with it. I've stopped with this. Like, it's too much.
Well, and it's funny too. Like, this happens in everything, like movies, TV shows, comics, books, whatever. I just don't understand why people don't get the concept of pajamas.
Yeah, also, like, how dared you, Kit? Like, sweatpants are luxurious.
No, God, I'd rather... sweatpants are fucking disgusting. Like, I'd rather be shot.
I have to tell you the story of the day I bought sweatpants earlier this year. I bought like the first pair of sweatpants I had owned in like a long time. I don't normally
I'm sorry.
wear sweatpants.
If your garment includes a bodily function as part of the name, that's fucking gross.
It is. Well, I wear sweatshirts.
Gross.
What about sweaters?
Oh, fucking stop.
What about sweaters?
It's just,
you wear sweaters.
You wear sweatshirts.
It's true. But it's actually going off my shoulders, so I need to be careful about that. Yeah, that's a big deal.
But I bought them, and then later that night I was recording. So, like, in the same day that buying the sweatpants, I put them on to record later with out of the fridge, and they got into the studio, and I was like, I gotta tell you guys, though, I bought sweatpants, and ever since I bought them, my life has completely fallen apart.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Which was, like, earlier that day.
That's why I won't buy them. Because that's basically, that's the point where you've given up.
It is.
What about digestion gloves?
Oh, well,
the gloves that you buy when you're after you eat, you put them on.
No,
I mean, you
rub
don't necessarily
your
have to digest while you're eating them.
Yeah,
that's just what they're called.
Are they supposed to help you digest food?
It's not a real thing.
It's all a lie.
I mean, you don't have to sweat to wear sweatpants. You don't have to digest to wear digestion gloves.
I will sweat in sweatpants because they're way too warm.
We're getting totally off topic, but my favorite answer to like sweatpants when people are like, I would never wear sweatpants, and then they go out in yoga pants. It's like, it's the same.
We couldn't be more on topic. We're talking about sweatpants. This is what we're about right now.
That's what people come here for.
I don't even call them. They're only sweatpants if you're in a gym or your house. If you are not in one of those locations, those are I have given up on life pants.
They're regular pants.
But to go back to my point about like the concept of pajamas, like there are cute pajamas that people wear. Like when it's hot out, like I always wear like a spaghetti strap and shorts. Like you guys are welcome for the mental image. Also imagine me like dripping nacho cheese on myself because I'm a fucking slob.
Just
make sure you keep those straps up, all right?
I can't promise that when I'm getting like
you
elbow
better. You're
deep
at home.
in some
You need
nachos.
to dress like it.
No, but nobody ever draws that. Nobody ever draws like your slightly unflattering shorts or like like
a t-shirt with a bad stain on it that you can't wear in public anymore, but you're like, fuck it, it's a good pajama top now.
It's fucking comfy as shit.
Yeah. I mean, they could have easily drawn Selina in a tank top and panties, like when she's in bed. Nope, buck naked.
Yeah.
Well,
I just don't get it. It's
I was
weird.
gonna say sometimes it's just as bad, but I mean, it depends on context, like what Kit said.
That's the thing. Like, there's so many opportunities in the story to justify like sexy imagery.
Right.
Why then is there all the unjustified sexy imagery?
Right. Yeah.
Like, it's not necessary. You didn't have to do that.
Right. No one would disbelieve the fact that like Selina Kyle could meet up with someone and have a sexy time.
Yeah.
Like that easily could have fit into the story. If that's what you wanted in that issue was for her to be being sexy. Like,
I mean, especially because
in-plot reasons for that.
She spends so much time running around in a skin-tight catsuit.
I actually like that it's not skin-tight in this.
I'm going to
more flight suity.
I'm going to continue arguing the absolute opposite on this.
Oh, do it. Get it.
Because of the fact that I think this is a big part of the character is that she's comfortable with herself. And it doesn't bother her a lick that she has this sort of you know, she's got this situation, you know, she knows she's sexy and she's fine with it. It's everybody else that is uncomfortable with her being comfortable. And I think that yes, it is drawn by guys, and yes, it depends on who is drawing it, but I think there is some argument for her own body positivity and the fact that if you're running around in a leather catsuit, you probably don't care too much about that.
Don't disagree with you. I think if you're a lady out there in the real world and you are comfortable with your body and you want to be naked at home and you want to do all that stuff, you want to wear skin-tight clothes and all of that, you want to leave your robe hanging off your shoulder all the time, do it.
4 panels.
By all means, do it. Go get it, girl. Because you're a human being and you can make decisions about your life. But Catwoman's not a human being.
Yeah, I want to make that a point explicitly clear. Yeah. There is a vast difference between what a person does and what a fictional character does, because fictional characters don't have agency. They're not real.
That fictional character
I still believe that characterization is a thing, though.
No, I know.
Absolutely.
That if this is indicative of the characterization of like what kind of person she is, you have to stop and say, if this was a real person, what would that real person do? And I know just as many real people who would not do those things.
Right.
So,
but I think the point that I'm making is, if there's a moment in the story that makes me go, is that real? Is that what she would do? What's going on here? And not consciously, like I'm not consciously trying to go police Selina Kyle or say, oh, is this the real Selina? This is not my Selina Kyle. Like, it's none of that. It's just like, wait, what's happening in this panel right now? Is this really happening? Oh, that's happening? Okay, all right. I'm a little confused why they chose to do that, but okay, I guess we're moving on with the story. And it's just those little, like, speed bumps on the road to a great story that, like, start to hiccup you off that track. And if you hit too many of them, you're like, wow, now I'm done with this story.
And I'm saying, since there's decades of this being the precedent, it should not come as a surprise.
No.
Like, to most people. And again, like, I think about in regard to these sort of characters is how much I love Black Widow, The Name of the Rose.
Yeah.
There is an entire fight scene in that with a character where she is tied to a chair fucking naked. All right. People would be like, harumph, she's naked, harumph, you know, that kind of thing. And I'm going, well, you know what? How it's drawn, why it's drawn, how she deals with the situation is kind of part of that too. And like, I don't really know if it's a huge fucking deal if it isn't like her sitting there and like fucking, you know, voguing for like a bajillion pages. Right. I had more of a problem, or I would have had more of a problem with the bit in the back where she's trying on the different costumes. I don't know if that's in all of the versions of this.
I don't know which one you're talking about.
But End of Crooked Little Town, which collects through 9, I think it is.
This is the old printing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got these little bits, like Many Lives of Selina Kyle. When Michael Ulming, I guess, the penciler, is doing this, like, we've got a case where she's got this, like, prostitute outfit and she's fucking climbing over a chain link fence and there's a convenient crotch shot of her helping someone else out here.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here going, on one hand, yeah, she's dressed as a prostitute. She's dressed as a prostitute for a reason. It's like why she's there. Am I necessarily comfortable with the fact that you had to draw the panel that way? No. Yeah. So I kind of see what you mean.
And that's specifically the point that I'm making most of all, is not necessarily like what she's doing or how she's dressed. It's the framing of the panel. Right. It's when the camera, for all intents and purposes, is staring directly at her ass. Like, that's not something that she is doing or a choice that she's making or a particular character attribute of her. It's the way that the panel was drawn.
And nudity does not always mean sexual. Like, there's like what Kit's talking about. There's also a fight scene in a movie called Eastern Promises, in which Viggo Mortensen has a naked knife fight with several other men in a bathhouse.
Oh, that's the
which
worst
is fucking brutal, but it's also in no way sexualized.
Yeah.
Like, that's just some naked men fighting and fearing for their lives.
Again, I think chicks can have conversations and be comfortable with each other and their bodies on that. And it's like, there's this whole bit in here in the back of this, like, why Holly isn't dead, where they're talking about, like, breaking the fourth wall and, like, their annoyance with the way different writers always have to throw on a new costume to a character or inexplicably bring somebody back. And this whole conversation is happening while one's in the tub and the other one's continually trying on different outfits.
Yeah.
I think, again, it could be easy to be like, oh, God, you know, you're just trying to throw all this sexy shit in there. But I don't necessarily think that we have to be prudish about it.
No.
I don't think it has to be
no
a problem
with nudity. If Selina Kyle wants to sleep naked, then great. It's when you're going to have her sleep naked and you're only going to show me, like, her boobs or her butt. Then, like, the shadow falls across her face or something, and you're like, wait, what?
Yeah. I think either way, you have to ask the question, like, each person for themselves has to ask the question of, is this being exploitative or not?
Yeah, absolutely.
And how do I define exploitative?
Yeah.
You know, and that's a bit of it too, because you could have some cases where somebody would look at, again, this character just by virtue of the costume she has in this and go, well, I'm not reading this thing because she's running around in a cat suit.
Right.
Whereas someone else would look at that and be like, oh, well, you know, that's practical for what she's doing, yada, yada, yada.
Batman.
They actually talk about that in that comic. Batman comes out and she's like, oh,
new costume. And he's like, yeah, it looks practical.
Well, it's like in the mini lives of Catwoman, like, one of the criminals is talking, being like, bullshit, she's not running around in that purple, like, slit dress getup jumping from roof to roof. That's stupid as hell.
Yeah.
Basically. And it's kind of funny because I think that it says a lot about the person, how they feel about each of those individual things. Like, I don't know. It's, I guess the way I put it is, it did not rankle me the way I would expect something like that to rankle me. Because there are so many other opportunities that they did not take.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I feel like most of the time when it's going to be really bad, it's going to be overwhelming.
Yeah, it's about scale. It's about like intensity. It's about, you know, is the entire book just there to be TNA? No. It's a good story and it's got interesting characters. Because the writing is so good, I'm not bothered by it.
Yeah,
they skipped some opportunities to really be exploitative. Like, okay, this is not on a scale of how exploitative and sexualized is this character, it's pretty low on the list. But it still kicks me every once in a while from the story where I'm just like unexpectedly, like it surprises me, I think, because it isn't there all the time. You know, it just kind of like sneaks up on me and I'm like, what is happening? What's going on? Why are you choosing this?
I guess that's where my head tilts and goes, I don't know how it could sneak. I don't know how it could possibly sneak, like, because it's Catwoman. So, again, most of the Catwoman books that I had seen, this book is exceptional to me in the regard that it doesn't take every opportunity. Yeah. And so it's, I don't know, this could be another one of those, like, I don't feel like this is another one of those half loaf of bread situations where I'm just, like, happy with what I can get, just because everything else is written so solidly. But
I guess I think just because a character has a history of being exploited doesn't mean I will expect it in the next book of them. So, like, even if I've read all of Jim Balent's Catwoman and know that that's all she does is, like, that's all that happens in that book is she's bent over in a lot of scenes. It's, like, excuses to have her giant purple boobs, like, going different directions and panels and whatnot. Thank you, Jim Balent, for not being able to draw. But I pick up this series, it has a very different tone, has a very different feel. It's got a different writer-artist team on it. My expectations reset on a lot of that stuff. And maybe that's unfair for
I was going to say that must
reader.
Feel good because, like, most of the time, again, being a chick reading comics, I go into every comic with this expectation that I'm going to be surprised if I don't see it.
Yeah. And
like, even if it's written by a woman, because, you know, whether we like it or not, the industry caters to men.
Yeah, and maybe it's just like, you know, that's what happens when you are kind of a jaded comic reader, is like you start to expect the worst from, well, I guess not the worst. You start to expect the status quo that's been set forward.
That's more where I'm at, is that I'm used to the status quo at this point. Doesn't mean I like it.
Yeah.
It just means that since I'm so used to seeing this, I'm not really shocked or surprised by it unless it's really overt.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, sometimes I can look at something and go, oh, God, you know, and I usually just roll my eyes.
Yeah, totally.
But it's very rare that I get, like, incensed or taken out of a comic story by a woman's body. Because I'm like, yep, there's sure a lot of those.
Yeah, here we go again.
Yeah, 51% of the planet. It's a shocker.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think it is just a case of, I would hope that it is, that we've moved past a little of that. And then I'm like, I guess we haven't. You know, it's kind of that. I should have seen it coming. I should have expected it. You're right, but one can always hope.
Well, like, I think about, again, Black Canary, and Zatanna Bloodspell last week.
Yep.
You know, we've got little conversational bathtub adventures. Like, I wonder why we don't get rankled about bathtub adventures. Like, again, because it's like, oh, but the writing, oh, but the tone. And I go, well, yeah, okay. You know, like, that's kind of where I get stuck, is I just kind of stop and go, does it take away? Does it show the relationship between the characters? Could it be showing a relationship between the characters?
Yeah.
Like,
is it necessary that she's in that bathtub?
Yeah.
No. But again, nudity does not necessarily always mean sexualizing or exploitative. But it is a good point, is like, why doesn't that rankle us as much as it could? Because there is no reason for Zatanna to be, for Black Canary to be in a bathtub in that scene.
Yeah.
Other than, I do think that it is kind of like she feels a little trapped, and that's why it's funny when the bit with the tiger happens. But there are still other ways to like trap her in a room with a tiger.
Yeah, totally.
Right. You know, you could have written around that.
Like, for example, maybe she was in a shower.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, like a
can't open the door.
Bathtub.
I mean, it could be a big deal.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. What if we did that, you know?
No, I mean, like, you could have put her in a magic trick. She could have been,
she could have been in a dressing room. What if she was in a dressing room getting dressed and the tiger was standing outside and we just see her uncomfortable inside the dressing room?
Oh, no,
I'm just thinking out of the box, you know.
This small washcloth.
Perhaps a swimming pool. Hand towel. Yeah, perhaps a swimming pool. A sauna, maybe.
Yeah. No, all of those are great ideas, Kate. You nailed it 110%.
I could write comics.
No, I see you can.
Yeah.
I see that.
That's what it is, you know.
You got talent, kid.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to go
Don't hide that
far.
under a bushel basket.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Was there anything else you wanted to talk about the art in Catwoman while we're kind of on the subject of panel layouts and framing?
I did want to talk about the color, at least very briefly.
Sure.
It was just really interesting to me how flat the colors were in this, and I think it contributes to kind of the timeless quality of it. That there's very little, I don't know, like I want to say depth to it. It has this very old school feel to it.
Yeah, so it's the difference between having like a majority color and a singular highlight versus like gradients, which is what we saw so much of in the 90s and the early 2000s. Is it's just like, we can make everything look round or everything look shiny or everything look like it has all this massive depth.
Right. And when I think of the early 20s or 2000s, I think of that kind of like very heavy digital color gradient.
Yeah.
That looks really bad now.
Well,
and
it was fast.
This does not do any of that.
No.
Like, it's a very traditional coloring style.
This is harder, though.
Yeah.
I mean, like, as a colorist, I think this
you
is
mean it's
harder.
more difficult?
It's more difficult to do. It takes more of an artist's eye to pick out the highlights. I think it takes more time to what would have been like cutting the frisket for the highlight, you know, like painting those specific moments. And I think a lot of the early gradient tool stuff that we look at now as like, oh, that's gross, is just having Photoshop set up a gradient for you, drag the line in the direction you want the gradient to go, and go, boom, there we go. We've added some depth to this. And it was about speed. It's what we talk about the monthly book, because colorists often colored multiple books a month. Because, you know, if you were fast, you could make a good living doing it. But that meant using a lot of shortcuts, like gradient fills, like, you know, that kind of highlighting, like airbrush highlighting really quickly, because it's soft and it's easier kind of to see than the hard highlights, which have to be right or they look wrong.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of that was speed, and I think a lot of it is just there are a lot of really talented colorists working in the world of comics now.
There was one of the colorists I noted, I think it was Matt Hollingsworth, worked on this book, who also worked on Hawkeye.
Yeah.
The recent Fraction Hawkeye.
Which has a really similar, like,
flat
color highlights.
And the same kind of heavy use of palette that works really well.
Oh, man, I love some of his lighting, where there's that one scene where this isn't Selina's big score, but it's her talking to Stark on a beach, and it's like all warm colors, and then like very much orange and reds, and then the very next panel is the exact same shot of Stark's face, but it's all blue, cold purples because now they're inside a nightclub, and it's like, change that scene so just with the lighting. Beautiful, Hollingsworth.
My favorite with lighting is when she ollies into
that Slam Bradley
house.
Scene. Yeah,
I just love that because like I love the wrinkles in the blanket. I love like the contours of the top of his hand, and like I don't know, that really struck me when I was first opening it up.
And when he has the lights on, it's like a completely different mood in that same room. Yeah.
They have a particular panel where they're showing all the shadows in the room like this, and then once he clicks on that bathroom light, like that little like wedge there. Yeah. It also is cool as far as the layout on the page because that little wedge leads you into these brighter things more naturalistically without it being so jarring. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that a lot of the colors in this series are really fantastic, either because they do such a good job of kind of showing you the grit and the dirt and the realism that is Gotham, but also they do a good job of setting the mood in scenes. It's something, the book that I always point to that I feel like the colors fail to set a real mood for me is Revival, which is a fine book, but it's, like this kind of coloring where it's like each interior space is given a unique character based on the palette they used for that interior lighting is something I don't remember ever seeing in Revival. It felt more like everything was daylit. You know?
And like so many comics today, the colors, like it just makes everything look smudgy and brown and kind of undifferentiated.
We were just talking about this on a book. What book was that?
Oh, I don't recall off the top of my head, but I love like how dynamic the colors are. Like, and I was just flipping through, and there's one panel where like Selina is kicking some guy in the head, and she's like all in black and he's in dark colors, and then all around them it's just this bright yellow, and it really makes you feel like the impact of the punch or the kick. And there's a whole lot of that like very dynamic colors where there's a very, very strong contrast and everything stands out really well.
Yeah, I do love the colors in the series. I think it complements all of the artists really well.
Totes.
We saw some interesting artists on here too. I cannot remember his name off the top of my head, but he is a Pitara, I think. No, it's
no, not Pitara.
The guy who went on to draw the She-Hulk run with Charles Soule.
Polito.
Thank you.
Yeah, Javier Polito.
Oh, is that the same guy?
Yeah. It's some awesome early work from him in this, which like looks different, but you can still see.
It really threw me out because it was so different from Stewart. And kind of like by the end of his arc, which I think was 3 issues, I had started to get into it. But I remember that was one too, where at first when I was reading She-Hulk, I really hated it, and then as the series went on, I started to warm up to it.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's a very unique style.
Yeah, it's very, very different.
Yeah,
and I think it takes a little bit of getting used to before you like really start to kind of groove on it and kind of get a sense of what his visual languages.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's cool to see early works from an artist like that, like in this. I don't know how early in his career this is, but to have seen the growth over the last 10 years, essentially, between this book and what he does now, or did recently on She-Hulk, is really cool. So I always love seeing like when an artist was a fill-in artist before they were like big enough to be on
that's
stuff.
My favorite thing.
And you like get to see kind of like what they used to draw like, and then now what their style is like. I always think that's cool. So that was very cool to see.
With Madame Xanadu, that was largely drawn by
Amy Reeder.
Amy Reeder, who did Rocket Girl, which we talked about on an earlier episode. And it was really interesting to see how her style has evolved over the years.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely.
And who was the other main artist on Madame Xanadu? It was Amy Reeder and Joelle Jones.
Yeah, Joelle Jones,
who is doing like very fantastic stuff right now on Lady Killer. So I love that kind of stuff. I always like to point it out when it's like, look at where they were, look at where they are now. Like, look at all the growth.
Babies.
It's like watching like a young jazz musician and then seeing them like come up in the game, or like a stand-up comic or something. Like watching their early sets and being like, man, they've changed so much. They're so much sadder now.
I honestly don't know which I prefer, watching an artist evolve like over time, or seeing somebody who you like and then going back and getting to experience their earlier stuff, having not seen it before.
Yeah, like a lone saxophone.
Jamie McKelvey is somebody whose art I've been enjoying for about 6 or 7 years now. And it's been really cool to see him evolve.
Yeah, for sure. I think they're both satisfying in different ways.
Yeah.
Because you get that like instantaneous gratification of like reading someone's new stuff and being like, oh, I wonder what they were like. And you can like jump back and look at and see all the progress they've made over the years. But I'm with you. I love following an artist and watching them like grow and evolve and change and develop new styles and stuff. Watching Scotty Young for me has been a lot like that, because if you look at his stuff on New Warriors or and then going into New X-Men, like that Reality Check trade looks like so polished, so much like animation cells. And then when he kind of like dirtied his style up when he went into New X-Men, and then into all of what he does now with I Hate Fairyland. That's been really fun for me. He's one of my favorite artists.
I have not read that.
I Hate Fairyland?
Yeah,
his new
I haven't seen that yet.
Indie graphic novel. Oh, no. It's brilliant.
All right. I'll have to borrow it from you or something.
Yeah, it's really funny. It's like only the first issue's out so far.
Okay.
But I love it so much. It's like Dorothy's in this it's like a Dorothy-like character in a magical land, and she's like, all right, we'll go off on this quest. We'll just follow the yellow brick road. And then you turn the page, and it's like 30 years later, and like she's still there, and she's like, I fucking hate this place. Like, when are we gonna goddamn get to the Emerald City? And it's like, that is the plot of the book.
That sounds
I'm like,
awesome.
all right, I'm totally sold. Here we go.
All right.
And she's it's fun.
So speaking of being totally sold on things, do we want to move on to recommendations?
Did you guys have anything else you wanted?
As you gesture meaningfully at a phone.
Well, I was gesturing to Kit, not to you. These are secret roommate
private.
gestures.
I am not
For
allowed
fuck's sake.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
into
Would
the
you
secret
just
sisterhood of iPhone gestures.
like, step off, please.
Yeah,
This is not your hood, Holmes.
I'm good to go to Rex. I just had to do some research on the thing I was recommending.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to
I was
start
going to
us?
say I need my Goodreads. Right?
God, I'm honestly torn between pitching two different things, so if somebody else wants to pitch...
I can start.
Okay.
I'll start. I know exactly what I'm doing this week.
Okay.
Or do you want to start? Do you want to?
I'll start, and then you can go, and then Kit can use
That
her
way
phone.
I can
Okay.
use my
Yeah, we're
phone
gonna
to
do that.
look at...
Let's do that.
My phone's
Alright.
Kit, so I stole Kit's.
Kayleigh, what do you want to read?
Okay,
Give me
I
phone
want
anxiety.
to read Autumn Lands, Tooth and Claw, Volume 1.
Ooh.
And I'm just going to read the Amazon description because I'm sorry, guys, I'm really lazy. But so when a secret conclave of wizards brings a legendary hero back from the forgotten past to save their dying world, they get a hero unlike anything they expected and trigger a crisis none of them may survive. And
Good.
it features aminals, which is important.
Aminal wizards.
Yes, aminals.
Aminal wizards.
Aminals.
Yes.
Is that like
wizards.
Animorphs?
No,
No,
important
they're
side
just-
Is it
note.
like half an Animorph?
No.
No.
Like the animal part?
No,
It's
it's
like
just
it's like
aminals.
Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck.
Yeah.
They're aminals.
Aminals.
Or like a dog. Dog is an aminal.
Yeah.
Or like Devin Townsend.
Or like that
Singing
one...
Animals. That's the best goddamn song.
like that one Diane Duane book about cat wizards?
There's not one. There are three.
Oh
Get
my
it
God.
together, Toby.
I only read one.
Um.
Did I
Yeah.
say song?
What? No, you said
No,
book.
you said
Okay, okay. I feel like I said... never mind. I am
I think you
tired.
said book.
We are
Okay.
all
It's late. It
Just-
started later than normal tonight. We're out
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really good series. They're a bunch of wizards all get together and they're like, let's do this thing we shouldn't do.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, that's why we shouldn't do this. But
surprise, it was a bad idea.
the other side of the story that I think is really cool that they don't mention in the Amazon description is it's very much stories about stories. So at the beginning of every issue or in the middle of every issue, you'll get like a 2-page like prose piece with a big like painting across the top. And it's like a narrative about something. And then whatever the issue's about in some way kind of refers to that. And it's kind of like, well, where did they get this legendary hero from? Like, what is
Who is
this?
this man?
Who
And
is
what does
this
he
strange
stand
masked
for?
man?
Hero
No
Smart?
masks in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is Hero Smart.
Is it Hero Smart?
Yeah, Hero Smart.
Pet Smart?
Hero Smart.
Pet Smart.
Yeah.
It's a pet
Or Pet
mart
Co.
for pets.
Hey, what if
Where
something
did
else?
The pets go.
No, I'm just going to let it hang. No, so this week I would like to bring a book I don't think I've recommended for. I hope I haven't. The trade comes out this week.
Ooh.
So I hope I did not jump the gun and recommend it during the issues, which I do a lot. But so this is a book that it's a licensed comic of a series I know nothing about. And I was like, well, that's dumb. Really? Who's going to read this comic? And then the first issue came out, and I believe it's... I want to look this up because I'm not sure. I think it's Joe Casey or Joe Kelly. I think it's
they're pretty interchangeable.
They're not. They're two very distinct writers. But I can't. So it's Joe Casey.
Okay.
So Joe Casey, and I was like, okay, well, I really like Joe Casey, so I'm gonna see what the rest of it is. And then they announced the artist, and it was Jim Mahfood, and I was like, well, fuck. Now I got to read this book by Joe Casey, illustrated by Jim Mahfood, and it is Miami Vice remix.
Yeah.
I fucking knew nothing about Miami Vice except that they're two really they're undercover cops. It's very 80s, and they were vice cops,
and they roll up the sleeves on their blazers.
Yeah, trying to crack down on drugs in Miami. But this is a relaunch, reboot, remix, like an actual remix. And you don't need to know anything about the previous series. Like that is irrelevant. You still need to know that they are undercover vice cops working in the city of Miami, and that's all you need to know. The art is phenomenal. It is like this... it's just an amazing story. It feels very timeless, out of time, in the same way that, in a different way than Catwoman, because there are cell phones, but everything is like inherently 80s styled, and it's just like, when is this? Oh, well, it doesn't matter to the story, because the story is this very cool crime story about drug dealing and new street drugs and the crazy effects they have on the inhabitants of Miami. And
question.
Yes.
Are there lasers?
I don't think there are lasers. I can't give you 100% answer.
Okay.
I don't remember there being lasers.
I've been watching a lot of Moonbeam City.
Okay. I don't know what that is.
It's a cartoon. It's like... the entire art style is like a Duran Duran cover.
Oh, okay. I'm into that.
And it's like ridiculously 80s, and there's lasers everywhere.
Awesome.
And dolphins jumping.
That makes sense.
Yeah, there were a lot of dolphins in the 80s. Little known fact about the 80s, dolphins just everywhere.
There were more dolphins than you realized.
Fishing.
Yeah.
It's funny, though.
There were land
it's got Rob
dolphins.
Lowe and Elizabeth
dolphins. Motherfucking were dolphins.
Wait, did you say were dolphins?
Dolphins,
we are dolphins?
We're dolphins. That's David Bowie.
Oh.
Yeah, he was actually a dolphin that walked as a man.
I thought you were saying we are all dolphins.
Which is true.
We are.
Excellent point.
That's a true confession.
Yeah, but everyone should check out Miami Vice Remix. It's crazy. Look at it at least for the art alone. Jim Mahfood, who well known for his work on Tank Girl. Is a crazy talented artist.
Disco
Absolutely
Destroyer.
Fucking nuts. And
we have to mention Disco Destroyer, though.
Disco Destroyer.
Yeah, oh my God.
Yes.
There was this pitch he did for a Titmouse cartoon,
mm-hmm.
Disco Destroyer. It's amazing. It's his art style animated, and Jesus Christ, look it up, because it's the coolest thing to watch.
Yeah.
It's so exciting.
And if you're interested in more Jim Mahfood stuff, I had the pleasure of interviewing him at Rose City Comic Con, and you can watch that online at Out of the Fridge YouTube. Dot something. I don't know. It's on the web. Just search and Google it. I don't fucking know.
God, why? Why do we have to direct you to these things?
Do all the Googles.
Do the work for yourself. But it's an awesome comic, and I love it. So check it out.
Very cool.
And the colors on it are also fucking nuts. I don't know who does that, but it's good.
Awesome. All right, I have decided what I am going to pitch.
Okay.
I'm going to pitch Tintin by Hergé.
Which one?
I pitched it once before. I'm going to pitch, actually, I checked, each volume is about 60 pages, so I'm going to pitch 4 of them.
What?
I'm going to recommend that we read The Black Island, The Shooting Star. I think it's and then a 2-parter. It's the something of the Unicorn and Red Rackham's Treasure.
Okay. Is that like Voyage of Last something of the Unicorn?
Yeah, Curse of the Unicorn, something like that. Yeah, I'll post it if we picked it. But if you don't know anything about Tintin, this is a Belgian comic.
The movie.
Watch the movie or the awesome cartoon series, or read all the comics because they're incredibly good. So it's set in like the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and it's about this young reporter. He's French. He lives in Paris. His name is Tintin.
Jimmy Olsen.
He has a buddy whose name is Captain Haddock, and they have crazy, awesome pulp adventures.
They do, yeah. It's a great series.
It is a phenomenal series. It's one of my favorites from when I was a kid. It's been hugely influential.
Yeah.
And it's so much fun, and there's mysteries and crimes and lots of people being chased around, and there's a cute dog named Snowy.
If you like Indiana Jones, Scooby-Doo, DuckTales, like this definitely had an influence on, I think, all of those things. So
yeah. And I've talked before about how much I love clean line work.
Yeah.
And this is like the definition of clean line work.
It's like old school.
Yeah, it's actually founded in like an entire school of comics art called, I think it's, God, I can't remember the name. It's in French, of course, but it basically means clear.
Yeah. It's like very reminiscent of like newspaper strip art to me, where it's like efficiency of line work because you're working under deadlines, and it's all about like, you know, conveying the idea as well as you possibly can with as few lines and extraneous information.
It's like clear line style.
Yeah. It's
but it's a fun, lighthearted, funny series, and I dig it a lot, and I think we should check it out.
Is this question though? Is this the book that you've been meaning to pitch for the last 4 weeks?
No, that was Secret Identities, which I pitched last week.
Oh, okay, because I know you'd been like audibling.
Yeah. No, I pitched that, and then I was like, "Oh crap, what do I pitch now?" Because I finally took care of that. But yeah, the Black Island. There's a mysterious island with a mysterious monster. The Shooting Star. There's a meteorite that crashes, and then a like boat race to try and get to it first to claim it. And then Red Rackham's Treasure, they find a treasure map and they go on an undersea adventure to find a shipwreck.
Sweet. Dude, it's like totally DuckTales.
Yeah.
Like DuckTales like totally was influenced by this. Like,
no, absolutely.
Yeah. Kit, what are you bringing for us this week?
I was going to do another chick book, and then I was like, you know what? I think a couple of women in a row means that we've definitely covered women for several months.
Oh, no. Yeah, there's no need for us to do another book about women.
I mean, it's going to start looking like Canada over here if we start doing anything
half
more.
And half? What is this?
Yeah, I'm not really cool with that.
Can I tell you, I've been listening to the Canadian theme song like all day long.
It's not called a theme song. It's called a national anthem.
No, it's a theme song. It's different in Canada.
Song. It's a national
Every
anthem.
time the Canadian does something, the theme song
that is
starts
not
playing.
how it works.
Canada has one of my favorite theme songs.
It's a national anthem. Can you sing all of them?
Welcome
Canada?
to
No, you can't.
I can
don't
sing
speak
most
French,
of it.
and they added that to it for some reason now. There's French in the national anthem.
Anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Kit.
Yeah.
No, you're not.
No, I'm really
But we're
not.
going to go with it.
Because I'm talking about Canada.
More
and it's never
importantly,
bad to interrupt people
oh
to
my
talk
God,
about
let's
Canada.
keep talking. God, I'm crabby today. So now I've got Fiverr and Frenzy in my head and their Canada song, so there's that. Which is more important, the real theme song of Canada.
Not theme songs.
It totally is. I'm coming back into Happy Land, guys. So there is a comic that I'm going to pitch instead, and I think it's just because of my mood lately, so we're going to go with that. I also noticed that it hasn't been done yet, and it was really important to me in starting to read comics. So
Bitch Planet.
Yeah, it's Bitch Planet because someone hasn't pitched it this week, and we, don't
Can't
have the
have that.
opportunity to. Yeah. So no, it's not Bitch Planet. Sadly, sorry everyone. I think I'm ready to deal with my anger, and my childish adventures getting into comics. There was a book that I read under my comforter when I was a teenager in a very Christian house, and I kept this underneath my mattress, as some people may keep their Playboys, because I was so scared of having it found, because it had everything I wasn't supposed to do. It had murder, it had cursing, it had poopy words, and it had a general distaste for the way people do things in our country. And it was also very ugly and had very pointy eyes.
Oh my God. I think that I was literally 1 second away from pulling this book off my shelf to bring tonight.
Toby, would you like to pitch a book for me?
No,
because clearly, here.
I'm just astounded.
You have the floor.
No, go right ahead.
No, okay, please.
No, after you, sir.
You know what? Did the beginning of your sentence interrupt the middle of mine?
No,
yes.
it clearly did not.
But I'm in a mood, so here we go. Okay. I think I'm ready to talk about Johnny the Homicidal Maniac in a critical way. I have really serious nostalgia goggles for this book because it meant so much to be able to read it at all, and it was such a transgressive act to do so for me that comics became more important to me, mostly by virtue of having to go through the trouble that I had to go through just to read them. And my first con was because of this book. I wanted to meet this author so much because he made me laugh. The first time I felt gross tummy queasies about something that I read. And not just because it was gross, but because I knew that I wasn't supposed to be reading it. But I don't know. I don't know how much more I have to describe this book. It's what it says on the tin. A guy who lives by himself in a weird little house, number 777, has got various things that talk to him, which may or may not be in his head. He has to keep a wall in his house constantly wet so that a monster doesn't break through, and he keeps it wet with blood. The way he gets it varies, usually, of course, all death, but the ways that people die are so fun and different. And for some reason, it was just really special for me to be able to laugh at these things and know that someone else was laughing at them and found them funny too. Mm-hmm. So, Johnny the Homicidal Maniac, that's what I want to do.
And this was written by...
John Vasquez.
Vasquez. Okay.
Yeah, who went on to create Invader Zim.
Okay, because I always think Dirge, I'm always not sure who did
Roman
what.
Dirge did the Lenore comics, which came out around the same time. Also a fan of magic, and thus friend of mine.
I never read either of those series, so in my head they're the same. They mushed together.
I assumed everyone in this room had. So
no, I never read it. Yeah, so
really, me neither. Gosh, yeah, it's I don't know. It's a very different comic.
Iconic.
It's I don't know. SLG. Slave Labor Graphics, my first comics that I was collecting of my own volition and going to try to find myself and not getting from the neighbors, were all from SLG.
Cool.
So, yeah.
I consider it in many ways simpatico with Scud the Disposable Assassin. It came out at a similar time. There's a similar style to it, although Johnny is a lot more aggressive.
I mean, he's a homicidal maniac.
He is a homicidal maniac. I mean,
that's
that is true.
The title.
But it prepares you for that. Don't assume this is just mindless violence, because you've got real art. You've got Ode to Joy in this comic. You've got Gregor Samsa from Kafka's Metamorphosis. It's very deep.
I see.
It also has numerous references to getting ices at 3 a.m, which is something that I've always related to and continue to relate to this day. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that sounds excellent. Kayleigh.
Yes.
You're starting this week. What would you like to read?
Because I have not read it, I think I will go with Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. Because I love Invader Zim. And I guess maybe I should read the thing that he did before that. I don't know. Whatever.
Somebody looked at his work and said he should make a show for children. Yeah. And I think it's important that you guys know why he has that childish sensibility. So, yeah.
I want to read it too. I mean, I'm in.
Are you voting for Johnny as well?
I'm in on the Johnny train.
All right, because I'm also going to vote for Johnny.
All right.
How could I not? Literally, I pulled it off of my shelf, and I was like, I want to read something a little bit happier this week.
Well, see, there you go, Toby. Now somebody picked one of your pitches this week.
Thank you.
That's amazing. You had to co-op mine to win. And yes, it is a competition, because I just made it a competition. Because I'm feeling very aggressive.
Well, here's how that competition shakes down. I pitched this book. It didn't get picked. You pitch it, and it did.
Yeah. Well,
so how do you like that?
That's a win for you.
That's everything.
But
that's all that really matters.
For the record, Kit, what would you have liked to have read this week?
I think my gurglings were in the Ma Food direction just because I don't know. Man. I love Jimmy. I almost bought those when I was at Rose City, and I didn't because I bought a Tank Girl sketchbook instead that I really wanted from him.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get a sentence out while he was signing my book.
I just watched him draw and drooled for like a half hour.
That's what I was doing.
It was
like,
fucking beautiful.
Hi, Jim. And he's like, oh, okay. Still here, are you?
It's goddamn wizardry watching him like ink stuff with the pen work he does is just nutty.
Beautiful.
But yeah, thank you for listening, everybody. Next week we'll be reading Johnny the Homicidal Maniac.
Available in one volume from Slave Labor Graphics.
Yeah, and if you have any questions or comments you want us to address on the episode, I know this is a fan favorite for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
So I expect some emails, /Facebook questions.
Yeah.
So we can answer those.
On it.
Yeah.
Damn it.
This is a popular book.
Jesus.
Please ask
Christ.
so many questions.
I'm fucking pumped to read this for the first time because I'm not going to lie. The fan base for this book kind of kept me away from it for a while. Not in like, oh, those dumb kids reading that whatever comic. It's just like when some people are like really excited about a thing and you're not excited about a thing, it just kind of like pushes you further away from the thing that they're excited about in a weird way. And you're just like,
Did you mean Homestuck?
Yeah, well,
because that's the relationship I had with Homestuck.
I have
in the beginning,
the same relationship with Homestuck still.
In the beginning.
So I'm excited to read this. But thanks for listening, everybody. We'll catch you next time. Keep reading Elephant Men.
Episode coming in a couple or 3 weeks at most.
Probably
soon.
Early December, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't that
last week of November, first week of December, somewhere in there?
Yeah. So we'll
get reading.
Yeah. We'll catch you up for that long run, and have a good night, everyone, or day.
Whenever
you're listening to this.
Have a good unit of time.
Have a great breakfast.
We will see you. We'll see you next interval.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to View from the Gutters. I hope our recommendations have inspired you to go out and find some new comics you'll enjoy. Join us next time for a discussion of our selected title, but like every week, we encourage you to read all of the recommended books. In the meantime, please leave us an iTunes review. It really does help new listeners find the show. You can also like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube, and follow us on Twitter at ViewFRTHGutters. Feel free to email us at contact@viewfromthegutters.com. Please send us any questions, comments, or recommendations you might have. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as we post new videos every week. And thanks again for listening. And as always, keep reading.